The grand arena sparkled under three bright suns. Princess Kara stood high. Above the crowd, her silver hair moved. Like water in the wind, her purple eyes looked down at the warriors below. Today she would pick her mate. This was the old way of her people. She had to choose from the best fighters in the galaxy. 50 warriors had come from 20 different star systems. There were huge crane fighters with 4 arms. There were fast Vendorian blade fighters who moved like shadows. There were Thexian knights in big metal suits. All of them had won many battles. All of them were heroes on their worlds. Then there was Jake Bennett. He was 22 years old. He was the youngest warrior there by 10 years. He was human and came from Earth. He wore basic armor and carried a simple gun. His brown hair was messy. His green eyes showed he was nervous. He looked wrong standing next to all these giant warriors and legends. The high officer of the palace was named Lord Xerox. He looked at the list of warriors with disgust. When he saw the human name, he made an angry face. A human, your grace. This has never happened before. They are barely a level 3 species. Their home planet only joined the Galactic Council 15 years ago. This Jake Bennett has no wins, no honors, no special service. He got here through a mistake in the rules. Kara looked at the young human through her viewing device. Other people saw weakness. She saw something else. His body position was clumsy, yes, but his eyes had strong will. While the other warriors showed off for the crowds, Jake stood quiet. He checked his equipment carefully. Let him compete, she said. In a soft voice, everyone who entered legally can participate. The first test started. Warriors had to fight against robot drones. These drones had smart battle programming. The Krathan champion, named Bruder, destroyed 15 drones in less than 1 minute. His forearms moved so fast you could not see them. The crowd shouted with joy. When it was Jake's turn, the arena got quiet. People wanted to see him fail quickly. The human took his position. He raised his gun. Drones turned on and flew at him fast. Everyone was shocked by what happened. Next, Jake did not try to fight like the other warriors. He did not use big attacks. Instead, he moved with smart planning. He used the buildings in the arena to help him. He rolled behind walls. He shot bullets that bounced off corners to hit drones he could not see. He used the space to force his enemies into small areas where he could hit them easy. His way of fighting was not pretty to watch. It was not impressive like the others, but when the timer stopped, Jake had killed 18 drones. That was 3 more than the mighty Bruder, and he was not even tired. The arena filled with confused talking. Lord Xerox's face became dark with anger, but Princess Kara leaned forward. Her interest was real for the first time. Interesting, she whispered to herself. The second test checked how smart warriors were. They had to solve problems fast. Each warrior went into fake world made by computers. It was a space station that was breaking. They had to save prisoners. They had to stop the power core from exploding. They had to fight enemies, and they had to do all this while the air was running out. Most warriors used strength and speed. They tried to do everything by fighting hard and moving fast. Many of them failed badly. The Vendoran fighter Zalith saved most of the prisoners, but did not stop the explosion. Bruder killed all the enemies but ran out of air before finishing the other tasks. Jake did something different. While other Warriors rushed in. He used the first important minutes to study the computer world. Then he did something no one expected. He made a small coolant leak on purpose in one area. This made the computer send enemy forces away from where the prisoners were. He used parts from broken enemy drones to fix the air system. He even took power from his weapon to give more energy to life support. He trusted his aim more than his gunpowder. When the fake world ended, Jake was the only warrior who finished all the tasks. He had time left over. He stood in the finish room breathing hard. His armor was dented and burned, but he had won. The crowd had mixed reactions. Some people cheered for the underdog. Other people complained about luck and computer mistakes, but among the rich nobles in the royal box, Calera was not the only one paying attention now. Lady Serena was the princess's closest helper. She leaned over and spoke. Your Grace, this human fights like no warrior I have ever seen. The others use strength and speed and natural advantages. He uses something else. His mind killer replied. Her purple eyes never left the young human as he walked out of the computer pod. Humans are a young species. They do not have the body strength of the crane. They do not have the speed of the Vendorans. They do not have the technology of the Thexians. So they have learned to think their way through problems. They have turned staying alive into an art. Lord Xerox interrupted their talk. He could barely hide his disgust. Your Grace, surely you are not really thinking about this human as a possible mate. He is a child among warriors. Yes, he has done okay in these first tests, but the real tests are coming. He will break, perhaps, Kiara said in a cold voice, or perhaps we will learn that humanity's reputation for stubborn toughness is real. That evening between tests, Jake was stopped by 3 of the veteran warriors. Bruder stood over him. The crane's forearms were crossed over his huge chest. You are making us all look like fools. Human, these tricks of yours are dishonoring the spirit of the tournament. Fight with strength and courage, not cowardice and cleverness. Jake looked up at the massive alien. He refused to be scared, even though the size difference was crazy. On my world, we have a saying, there is no such thing as a fair fight. There is only winning and losing. I am here to win, not to put on a show. Salith the Vendorian stepped forward. She moved like water. You speak of winning, but you know nothing of honor. The princess deserves a mate who shows the warrior spirit, not a technician who hides behind tactics. Jake's face became hard. I do not know what the princess deserves, but I know what I am. I am human. We do not have 4 arms or super reflexes or hundreds of years of warrior tradition. What we have is the ability to look at any problem, no matter how impossible, and find a way to solve it. That is how we survived on Earth. That is how we earned our place in the Galactic Council, and that is how I will win this tournament. The fight might have gotten worse, but palace guards came and stopped it. But as Jake walked away, he felt like someone was watching him. He was right. From her private rooms high above, Princess Kiara watched the whole thing. Through her computer screens, a small smile appeared on her face. The other warrior saw a weak human. She saw potential. She saw someone who refused to accept limits. She saw someone who turned disadvantages into advantages through pure determination and smart thinking. This tournament was becoming far more interesting than she had expected. The young human from Earth was Changing everything, he was proving that. Strength came in many forms, and Kalara found herself drawn to this unexpected challenger who fought not with muscles, but with his mind and heart. The third test was designed to break warriors. It tested courage when there was no hope. Each warrior had to hold a position against endless enemy forces. Behind them were innocent people trying to escape. The test measured how long they survived and how many enemies they killed, but most important was how many innocent people got away safe. The fake world showed a narrow mountain pass on a dangerous planet. A group of refugees was trying to run away behind the warrior's position. Wave after wave of enemy soldiers would attack until the warrior fell. The test gave points for time alive and enemies killed, and most of all for refugees saved. Bruder went first. He lasted 47 minutes. He killed over 300 enemy fighters. His fighting was amazing to watch, but in his battle rage he forgot the main goal. Only 60% of the refugees escaped because he focused on glory instead of protecting them. Zalith the Venduran fought with beautiful skill. Her blade moved like it was dancing. She lasted 39 minutes and saved 75% of the refugees. Other warriors fell between 20 and 50 minutes, with different numbers of refugees saved. When Jake entered the fake world, he looked at the situation carefully. The pass was narrow with high walls on both sides, perfect for creating choke points where enemies had to bunch together. The refugee group moved slowly, too slowly. He had limited bullets and no backup. He made a decision that shocked everyone watching. Instead of taking a hero position at the front of the pass, Jake ran to the refugee group. He organized the people. He found those who had any fighting experience. He gave them weapons from dead enemies. Then he did something even more surprising. He used his explosives to cause a rock slide. He did it on purpose. It closed part of the pass behind the group. This created a smaller area to defend. Yes, he could not run away now. Yes, he had trapped himself, but he had also forced the enemy into a killing area of his own design. The refugees were not helpless victims anymore. They were armed. They were organized. They were a fighting force. Jake lasted only 32 minutes before he fell in the fake world, but 98% of the refugees escaped successfully. He had turned victims into survivors. He had turned a desperate last stand into a team defense. When the fake world ended, the arena was silent. Then Princess Kara stood up. She began to clap slowly at first, then with real enthusiasm. Crowd exploded. Half were cheering, half were confused. Lord Exer could barely control his anger. Your Grace, this is not right. The human barely lasted half as long as Bruder. He showed less fighting skill than any warrior here. Kara's voice cut through the room like a knife. He understood the goal. Lord Xerox, this was not a test of how long one could fight. It was a test of what one would fight for. Every other warrior treated those refugees as obstacles, things to work around while chasing personal glory. The human made them his priority. He turned a last stand into a victory. That is what true leadership looks like. That night Jake got an unexpected message. Princess Kalara wanted to speak with him privately. As guards walked him through the crystal hallways of the royal palace, Jake's mind raced. This could be good news or very bad news. He was led to a private garden. It was filled with plants from Earth. Someone had clearly taken care of Then with love, Princess Kiara stood among the green plants. Her silver hair glowed in the light of the planets. 3 moons, she was even more beautiful. Up close, but what struck Jake most was her eyes. They held smart thinking in depth that made him forget his nervousness. Jake Bennett of Earth, you fight unlike any warrior I have met. Tell me, why did you enter this tournament? Truth, please. Jake took a breath. Honestly, because it was an impossible challenge. My whole life, people have told me what humans cannot do. We cannot compete with elder species. We cannot match their strength, or their technology, or their hundreds of years of progress. And maybe they are right, but we are stubborn. We see impossible challenges, and we try anyway. Not because we think we will win, but because not trying means accepting that we will always be less. I am here to prove that being young and having no experience does not mean being weak. Kara studied him for a long moment, and if you win, if I choose you, then I will spend every day proving I was worthy of that choice. The princess smiled. That was exactly what she hoped to hear. She had watched countless warriors over the years. Most wanted her for power or status, or to make alliances between worlds. Jake wanted to prove something to himself and his species. That was refreshing. That was honest. That was exactly the kind of partner she needed. The 4th test came 2 days later. This one tested not muscles but judgment and wisdom. Each warrior would face impossible choices, moral problems where there were no good answers, only less terrible ones. The fake world would change based on each decision. It would create problems that followed from the first choice. It tested not just the first decision, but how warriors dealt with the results. The test started simply. A colony ship with 10,000 people had been badly damaged. The warrior commanded a rescue ship that could only save 5,000 people. Who would be saved, and who would be left to die? Most warriors approached the problem with brutal logic. Bruder chose to save the strongest people, those most likely to rebuild their world. Zalith saved children first. She reasoned that they were the future. Athexian Knight named Calder saved those with the most valuable skills. Each approach had logic but also terrible results. When Jake entered the fake world, he studied the rules carefully. Then he did something unexpected. He contacted the colony ship's captain and suggested a different solution. Instead of choosing who to save, he would try to keep the colony ship's life support working just long enough for a second rescue ship to arrive. It was risky. It needed perfect math and perfect action. If he failed, everyone might die. The fake world changed. A new crisis appeared. The second rescue ship would take 6 hours to arrive. The colony ship's life support could be extended, but only by taking power from the shield. This would leave the ship open to debris from space rocks nearby. Every piece of debris that hit would kill dozens of people. Jake made a choice that horrified the people watching. He moved his own smaller rescue ship to block the debris. He used it as a shield to protect the colony ship. His ship took terrible damage in the fake world. He died, but when the second rescue ship arrived, all 10,000 colonists were saved. The arena fell silent as the fake world ended. Warriors who had scored well by making harsh but logical choices suddenly felt uncomfortable. They had kept themselves safe while making terrible decisions about others. Jake had given up everything to save Everyone, Princess Kara's voice rang out. Across the arena, the human was given an impossible choice. Like the others, he could have made a logical decision about who deserves to live and who must die. Instead, he refused to accept the rules. He found a third option, one that needed sacrifice, and he made that sacrifice himself rather than forcing it on others. This is wisdom, this is true leadership. Lord Xerox could barely control himself. Your Grace, you are praising suicide. In the real world, such decisions get everyone killed. Do they? Kara's eyes flashed. Or do we simply lack the imagination to find better solutions? The human showed us that sometimes the answer is not choosing who lives and who dies. Sometimes it is refusing to accept that anyone must die at all. As the tests went into their 5th day, tensions among the warriors reached a breaking point. A group of veteran warriors led by Bruder cornered Jake in the training room. This ends now, human. You have made fools of us all with your tricks and self-sacrifice. The princess is being fooled by novelty not worth. Leave the tournament. Jake stood his ground. Even though he was outnumbered and outmatched, no, then we will force you out. A warrior from the Duraxian Empire stepped forward. He was a huge reptile named Krabik. You are not worthy to stand among us. You are weak and have no experience and are foolish. You are right, Jake said quietly. I am all those things. I am the weakest warrior here, the least experienced, probably the most foolish for even trying, but I am still here, and that terrifies you, does it? Not, because if someone like me can compete with legends like you, what does that say about the value of all your strength and experience? The confrontation got worse. Bruder raised a massive fist, but before he could strike, Princess Kara's voice cut through the tension like a whip. Enough. She walked into the training room. Her royal guards came with her. Every warrior immediately dropped to one knee, except Jake, who simply stood straight and met her eyes. Any warrior who hurts another competitor outside the official tests will be immediately thrown out and banned from Valthoran space. This tournament exists to find a worthy mate, not to satisfy hurt egos. Jake Bennett has earned his place here through legitimate means. He will compete until eliminated by a test or until I make my choice. Is that understood? A chorus of yes, Your Grace echoed through the room. After the other warriors left, Kara approached Jake. Walk with me. They walked through the palace gardens in silence for several minutes before she spoke. You do not bow, should I? Jake asked. I mean no disrespect. On Earth, we fought wars to end the idea that some people are naturally better than others just because of birth. Kalara stopped walking and turned to face Jake completely. Do you have any idea what you are saying? I am the crown princess of an empire that covers 40 star systems. You are a 22-year-old human from a species that has barely left their home solar system. I know, Jake said, and that is exactly why I might be what you need. Everyone else here sees a princess, a title, a political alliance. I see Kara, a person who is curious enough to keep an earth garden in her palace, who values wisdom over strength, who defends an underdog. She barely knows because it is the right thing to do. That is the person I am trying to be worthy of. For a long moment Kara said nothing, then she smiled. 2 more tests remain. Win them. Jake Bennett, prove to the galaxy that humanity deserves to stand among the Stars, the fifth test was designed to break spirits as much as bodies. Warriors would be put in individual survival situations on hostile worlds. They would have no weapons and limited supplies. The only goal was to survive. For as long as possible, the test measured raw endurance and the ability to adapt and mental strength when stripped of all advantages. Each warrior got a different hostile environment. Bruder found himself on a volcano world with poison air and ground that could collapse at any moment. Zalith appeared on an ice planet where temperatures dropped to 200 degrees below zero. Kaldor, Thayan Night, was put in a thick jungle filled with predators. Jake opened his eyes to find himself in a desert. The heat was crushing, easily over 60 degrees. Twin suns blazed in a purple sky. The landscape stretched forever in all directions, nothing but sand and rock. He had a single water container, a basic survival knife, and an emergency button that would end the test but mark him as withdrawn. Most warriors attacked their environments with their usual aggression. Bruder used his strength to make paths through lava flows. Zalith's speed allowed her to stay ahead of freezing by constant movement. They fought their environments. They were determined to dominate through pure will. Jake took a different approach. He did not fight the desert, he studied it. He noticed that certain rock shapes gave shade during specific times of day. He saw that small creatures came out of holes at dawn and dusk. This meant there was water somewhere underground. He used his knife not as a weapon but as a tool. He created a solar still to pull moisture from the air. Hours became days. Warriors began to fall. Bruder's brute force approach exhausted him. He pressed his emergency button. After 73 hours, Zalith lasted 91 hours before freezing forced her to withdraw. Others fell at different times, their bodies and minds breaking under the endless pressure. Jake kept going. He had found a rhythm with the desert, moving during cooler hours, resting in shade during peak heat. He had found an underground water source. He had even begun marking territorial boundaries to avoid the desert predators he had identified. The fake world had expected him to suffer and struggle. Instead, he had adapted. He had learned to live with the desert instead of fighting it. On the fourth day, something changed. A massive sandstorm rolled across the horizon, wall of sand and wind that would surely kill anyone caught in it. Jake had two choices: press his button and withdraw safely, or seek shelter and risk death. He did not hesitate. Using his observations from previous days, he went to a rock formation he had identified as stable. He wedged himself into a narrow crack. He used his water container to seal his mouth and nose, and he endured. The storm lasted 18 hours. It was the longest 18 hours of Jake's life. Sand scraped his skin. Wind threatened to tear him from his shelter several times. He thought he would die. His hand moved toward the button, but he held on. When the storm finally passed, Jake came out battered but alive. He had lasted 137 hours, 40 hours longer than the second place warrior. He had outlasted veterans with superior strength and speed and experience through nothing but adaptation and pure stubborn refusal to quit. As medical teams helped warriors in the recovery rooms, Princess Kara reviewed the test footage. She watched Jake's survival in the desert with growing respect. While others had fought their environments, he had learned to live with his, while others had relied on their natural advantages he had created new advantages through watching and adapting. Lady Serena stood beside her. The human's performance is remarkable, Your Grace. I have never seen such pure determination. It is more than determination, Kira replied softly. It is understanding. He understands that strength is not about dominating your circumstances. It is about adapting to them. Every other warrior tried to force their will on their environment. Jake worked with his environment instead. That shows a kind of intelligence that cannot be taught. That evening, as Jake recovered in the medical facility, he got another private message from the princess. This time he found her on a balcony looking over the city. She was watching the three suns set one after another. One test remains, she said, without turning, the trial of unity. It is traditionally the most difficult because it requires something warriors rarely have the ability to work together. Jake joined her at the railing. Let me guess, all remaining warriors have to cooperate on a shared goal. Yes, Kara said. The fake world will place all of you in a situation where individual achievement is impossible. Only by combining your unique strengths can you succeed. Many tournaments end with no winner because warriors cannot overcome their competitive nature. And if we all succeed, Jake asked, how do you choose? Then Kara finally turned to look at him. Her purple eyes reflected the setting suns. Then I choose based on what I have learned over these 5 tests. Not just about combat skill or survival abilities, but about character. About the kind of person each warrior truly is. She stepped closer. You have impressed me, Jake Bennett, not because you are the strongest or fastest, but because you represent something that your species brings to the galaxy. Innovation, the ability to adapt, the refusal to accept that anything is impossible. These are qualities my empire needs. These are qualities I need. Jake met her gaze steadily. I am still going to win that final test, not because I want to impress you, though I do, but because if I am going to stand beside you, I need to prove I can stand beside anyone. That is exactly what I hoped you would say, Kilara replied. The next morning brought the announcement everyone had been waiting for. The final test would begin that afternoon. Only 7 warriors remained. Bruder, despite his earlier failures, had advanced through pure combat power. Zalith remained with her blade skills unmatched. Kaldor Thexian had proven his tactical mind. 3 other warriors completed the group. A Zenturi sniper named Lyrics, a morph infiltrator called Vex, and a Korvathi berserker known as Thorn. And then there was Jake, the human who had defied everyone's expectations, the human who had proven that youth and inexperience did not mean weakness, the human who had shown that sometimes the best solution was not the most obvious one. The 7 warriors gathered in the staging area. Tension was thick. These were not teammates. These were competitors who had spent days trying to outdo each other. Now they were expected to work together. Bruder glared at Jake. If you cost us this test, human, I will make sure you regret it. Jake met his gaze calmly. If we fail, it will be because we could not put aside our egos long enough to work as a team. The question is, can you do that, Bruder? Can any of us? Zith spoke up. Her voice was smooth like silk. The human has a point. We have been trained our entire lives to be the best, to stand above others. Now we must stand with others. This goes Against everything we know, Kaldor. Thexian adjusted his armor. I have run the calculations, the success rate for the trial of unity across all tournaments in recorded history is less than 30%. Most groups fail because they cannot cooperate effectively. We must approach this logically. We must identify each warrior's strengths and create a plan that utilizes them optimally. Easier said than done, Lyrics the sniper muttered. I work alone, I always have. Asking me to trust others goes against every instinct I have. The same is true for all of us, Vex added. The Morpheans form shimmered slightly as he spoke. Infiltrators succeed through stealth and independence. Berserkers like Thorn succeed through rage and individual fury. How do we reconcile such different approaches? Jake listened to all of this. He had been thinking about this problem since Kara told him about the final test. He knew what the real challenge was. It was not the fake world scenario they would face. It was the warriors themselves. They had to overcome their own natures before they could overcome any external obstacle. The attendant called them forward. It was time. The 7 warriors entered the simulation pods. The fake world loaded around them, and the final test began. The fake world formed around them. They stood on a space station that was shaking and falling apart. Alarms blared. Everywhere red lights flashed. Computer voice announced that the core reactor would explode in 2 hours. Enemy forces surrounded the station from all sides. There were 500 civilian scientists trapped inside who needed to get out. The warriors had access to one small transport ship. It could hold 100 people per trip. That meant 5 trips would be necessary. The catch was that every warrior had to help. The enemies attacking were different types. They needed different approaches. The reactor needed technical work to stabilize. The evacuations needed coordination. No single warrior could succeed alone. The fake world began, and immediately tensions exploded. I will handle the reactor, Kaldor announced. My technical knowledge is better than everyone here. No, I will defend this station while the rest of you run away with the civilians. Bruder growled, his forearms flexed with anger. Stop, Jake's voice cut through the argument. Everyone fell silent, more out of surprise than respect. We are already failing. This test is not about proving who is best. It is about combining what we are best at, the human. Speak sense, Lee, the Century sniper said. Thoughtfully. Continue. Jake outlined a plan quickly. Bruder and Thorn would hold the main docking bay. They would use their incredible strength and combat power to protect the evacuation point. Zalith and Vex would work together. They would use speed and stealth to kill enemy infiltrators inside the station. Lyrics would take a position overlooking the docking bay. She would provide sniper support from above. Kaldor would stabilize the reactor with Jake's help. They would combine technical knowledge with human improvisation. Why should we listen to you? Thorn demanded. You are the weakest among us. Because I am the only one thinking about all of us instead of just myself, Jake replied. Look, I know I am not as strong or skilled as any of you, but I have spent this entire tournament studying how each of you fights, how you think, what you are capable of. I know Bruder fights best when he has room to move and a clear enemy. I know Zalith works better with a partner who can create openings for her strikes. I know Lyrics needs elevation and clear lines of Sight, I have been watching and learning. That is what humans do. We adapt, we work together, we win by making our team greater than the sum of its parts. There was a long silence. Everyone looked at each other. Warriors who had been competitors, warriors who had spent days trying to prove they were better than everyone else. Now they had to trust each other. Salith spoke first. The human speaks truth. I will follow this plan. One by one the other warriors agreed. Even Bruder grudgingly nodded. Very well, human, we will try your way, but if this fails, the blame is yours. Jake smiled slightly. If this fails, we will all be dead in the fake world, so blame will not matter much. Now let us move. We have 2 hours and 500 lives depending on us. The plan began. Bruder and Thorn took positions at the docking bay entrance. Enemy forces immediately began their assault. The 2 powerful warriors fought side by side. Bruder's forearms created a wall of destruction. Thorn's berserker raid made him nearly unstoppable. Together, they held a position that should have been impossible to defend. Zalith and Vex moved through the stations, corridors like ghosts. The vendors' blade work was poetry. The Morph's ability to blend with shadows was perfect. They found enemy infiltrators trying to sabotage the evacuation. They eliminated threats before anyone even knew the threats existed. Lex climbed to a high position overlooking the docking bay. Her sniper rifle sang. Every shot found its mark. She covered Brute and Thorn from angles they could not see. She eliminated enemies before they could flank the defenders. Jake and Kaldor raced to the reactor core. The Thexians' technical knowledge was vast, but the damage to the reactor was beyond normal repair protocols. We need to completely reroute the coolant system, Kaldor said. His voice was stressed. But the controls are damaged. I cannot access them from here. Jake looked at the twisted metal and sparking wires. On Earth we have a saying, when technology fails, go analog. He pulled out his basic tools, started cutting wires, started reconnecting systems manually. Kaldor watched in horror at first, then in growing understanding. You are bypassing the computer controls entirely, creating a manual override system using basic electrical principles. It is crude, but it might work. It will work, Jake said with more confidence than he felt. It has to work. They work together. Kaldor's knowledge guiding Jake's hands. The human's innovative thinking, solving problems the Thexian had not considered. Time ticked away. 1 hour remained. First transport ship left with 100 scientists. Bruder and Thorn continued to hold the line. Their bodies were covered in wounds, but they did not fall back. 45 minutes remained. The second transport ship left. Salith and Vex had cleared most of the internal threats. They joined Bruder and Thorn at the docking bay. Now 4 warriors held the position. 30 minutes remained. The third transport ship left. Leary's ammunition was running low. She made every shot count. 20 minutes remained. The fourth transport ship left. The reactor was stabilizing. Jake and Kaldor had done the impossible. They had created a manual control system from scraps and determination. 10 minutes remained. The final transport ship loaded the last scientists, but there was a problem. Enemy forces had broken through. They were in the docking bay. Bruder was down. Thorn was wounded. Zith was surrounded. Vex was trying to reach her, but could not get through. Jake left the reactor core. He grabbed a weapon from a fallen enemy. He was not the best fighter, he was not the strongest or fastest, but he was there, and sometimes that was enough. He provided covering fire for Vex. The morph reached Xalith. Together they fought their way back. Jake helped Bruder to his feet. Massive Creighton was bleeding but alive. "Come on," Jake said, "we are leaving. Together or not at all." The final transport ship lifted off just as the reactor went critical. The fake world exploded in brilliant light. Then everything went dark. The simulation ended. The 7 warriors stood in the completion chamber, all alive, all successful. It was the first time in tournament history that every competitor had succeeded in the trial of unity. The crowd in the arena was going crazy. People were cheering and crying and shouting. Lord Xerox sat in stunned silence. Even he could not deny what they had witnessed. Princess Kara stood. Her face showed pride in something else, something deeper. She had watched Jake throughout the test. She had seen him put aside his own glory to ensure that team succeeded. She had seen him risk himself to save others. She had seen true leadership in the recovery area. The warriors gathered. There was a different feeling now. They were not just competitors anymore. They were something else, something rare. Bruder approached Jake. His massive form no longer seemed threatening. "I underestimated you, human. You may not have our strength, but you have something more valuable. You understand unity. You see individuals and imagine teams. That is a gift." Xith added her own words. "I fought for glory. You fought to ensure we all succeeded. That is the mark of a true leader." Even Thorn, who had been hostile from the start, showed respect. "You proved yourself today, human, not with muscles, but with heart and mind. That is worth more than any physical strength." Kaldor Thexian spoke last. "I have calculated probabilities for decades. I thought success could be measured and predicted. You showed me that the best solutions often cannot be calculated. They must be felt, understood intuitively. Humans have that ability in ways we do not." Jake felt overwhelmed. These were legendary warriors, heroes of their worlds, and they were showing him respect. Real respect earned through action, not given through tradition. "Thank you," he said simply, "but we did this together. That was the point. None of us could have succeeded alone. Together we were unstoppable." That night there was a celebration, but Jake found himself drawn to the quiet garden. Instead of the loud party, he needed time to think, to process everything that had happened. He found Princess Kara already there. She was sitting on a bench looking at the earth plants she had cultivated. She looked up as he approached. "I hoped you would come here," she said. "The celebration is for the warriors, for the show, but I wanted to talk to the person." Jake sat beside her. "Not too close, but close enough. I am still processing all of this. A week ago I was nobody, just another human trying to prove himself. Now I am here, having survived 6 impossible tests, about to find out if I won or lost. The most important thing, you have already won," Kara said softly. "Perhaps not the tournament. I have not made my final choice yet, but you have won something more important. You have proven that humanity deserves respect, that youth is not weakness, that innovation and adaptability matter as much as strength and tradition. You have changed minds, including mine." Jake looked at her. "And what do you think now?" "I think Kilara said slowly that I have spent my entire life surrounded by warriors who want to possess me, who see me as a prize or a political tool. You are the first person who seems to see me as just Kara, a person with thoughts and dreams, and doubts that is more valuable than. You know, they sat in comfortable silence for a while. The garden was peaceful. The morning of the final ceremony arrived with bright sunshine. The entire planet seemed to hold its breath. Today, Princess Kilara would announce her choice, the grand arena filled with people from across the galaxy, ambassadors and nobles and common citizens. Everyone wanted to witness this historic moment. The 7 remaining warriors stood in the line. Each one wore their finest armor and ceremonial dress. Bruder the mighty Crane stood tall and proud. Zalith the graceful vendor looked like living art. Kaldor the brilliant Thexian gleamed in his polished suit. Lyrax the deadly sniper stood with quiet confidence. Vex the shadow infiltrator seemed to shimmer in the light. Thorn the fierce berserker radiated controlled power. And Jake Bennett, the young human from Earth, wore a simple dress uniform. He looked small next to the others. He looked young and inexperienced, but his eyes held steady determination. Princess Kara entered the arena to thunderous applause. She wore robes of silver and white. Her hair was styled in the traditional way of her people, but her eyes were what everyone noticed. They sparkled with intelligence and purpose. She walked slowly to the center platform. The crowd fell silent. This was the moment. Lord Xerox stood beside her. His duty was to announce the decision, but Kara raised her hand. She would speak for herself. People of the Valkyther Empire and honored guests from across the galaxy. For 1 week I have watched warriors demonstrate their abilities. I have seen strength that could break mountains, speed that seemed impossible, technical skill that bordered on magic. Each warrior here has proven themselves worthy of respect and honor. She paused, her eyes swept across the 7 warriors. The crowd waited with held breath, but I was not seeking only the strongest warrior. I was not seeking only the fastest or most skilled. I was seeking someone who shows the qualities that will make the Vthuran Empire better, someone who can see beyond tradition to new possibilities, someone who values wisdom over raw strength, someone who values unity over individual glory, someone who values innovation over doing things the old way. Kara descended from her platform. She walked along the line of warriors. She stopped before each one. She acknowledged their achievements. When she reached Bruder, she spoke. You showed incredible strength and courage. You are a true warrior in every sense. You have my deepest respect. Bruder bowed his head. To Zith she said, Your grace and skill are unmatched. You move like water and strike like lightning. You honor your people. Zalith placed her hand over her heart. To Kaldor she said, Your mind is a weapon as powerful as any sword. Your technical knowledge saved us all. The Thexian nodded with quiet pride. To El she said, Your patience and precision are legendary. Every shot true, every decision calculated. Lars smiled slightly. To Vex she said, Your ability to adapt and blend is remarkable. You see what others miss. The morph shimmered in acknowledgement. To Thor she said, Your passion and power are all inspiring. Your spirit burns bright. The berserker growled with pleasure. Then Kiara stood before Jake, the young Human met her eyes without fear or arrogance, just honest openness. Jake Bennett of Earth, you came to this tournament as the ultimate underdog. You have no famous victories, no legendary service record, no natural physical advantages. What you have is something far more valuable. She turned to address the crowd. As much as Jake, this human, has shown me that humanity's greatest strength is not in physical power. It is in the ability to adapt, in seeing problems from new angles, in refusing to accept that anything is truly impossible. He has shown me that a true warrior fights not for personal glory, but for the success of everyone. He has proven that real leadership is about bringing out the best in others, not just being the best yourself. The arena was completely silent. You could hear people breathing. In the third test, while others fought for personal glory, Jake Bennett organized refugees into a fighting force and saved 98% of them. In the fourth test, when given an impossible choice between saving some people or others, he refused to accept the choice and found a way to save everyone, even at the cost of his own life in the simulation. In the fifth test, he did not try to dominate a hostile desert. He learned to live with it, to adapt to it, and he outlasted everyone by 40 hours. In the final test, he saw 7 individual warriors and imagined one unstoppable team. He created a plan that used each warrior's strengths perfectly, and for the first time in tournament history, all 7 warriors succeeded together. Kara took Jake's hand. The crowd gasped. This was not part of the usual ceremony. Jake Bennett has proven something important. He has proven that being young does not mean being weak, that having no experience does not mean having no value, that coming from a younger species does not mean having nothing to contribute. He has proven that sometimes the best solution is not the obvious one, that sometimes wisdom matters more than strength, that sometimes working together achieves what no individual can do alone. She turned to face Jake fully. Her voice was clear and strong. I choose Jake Bennett of Earth as my mate. The arena exploded. Some people cheered wildly. Some people shouted in protest. Some people sat in stunned silence. This was unprecedented. A human, a species barely 20 years in the galactic community, chosen over legendary warriors from ancient civilizations. Lord Xerox looked like he had been struck. This is madness, Your Grace. The council will never accept this. The people will riot. Kara's voice cut through the noise like a blade. The council will accept my choice because it is my right to choose. The people will accept it because I will show them why this choice is correct, and anyone who cannot accept it can leave my empire. She turned back to the crowd. I understand this choice may shock some of you. I understand that tradition says I should choose a warrior from an established elder species, but I ask you to think about what we have witnessed this week. Jake Bennett succeeded not through superior strength or speed. He succeeded through innovation and determination. He solved problems others declared impossible. He saved people others saw as obstacles. He brought together warriors who fought as individuals and made them into a team. These are exactly the qualities the Vthuran Empire needs as we face an uncertain future. Bruder stepped forward. His forearms were raised in salute. The princess chooses wisely. I fought for glory. The human fought for something greater. He has my respect and my full support. One by one the other warriors stepped forward. Zalith spoke. He taught me that working with others can be stronger than working alone. I support this choice, Kaldor said. He showed me that the best solutions cannot always be calculated. Sometimes they must be felt. I support this choice. Lyrics, Vex, and Thorn all added their voices. The 7 warriors who had competed now stood united behind Jake and Kara. The crowd's mood began to shift. If these legendary warriors supported the choice, perhaps there was wisdom in it. Jake stood there trying to process everything. A week ago he was nobody. Now he stood beside a princess. With the support of warriors he had admired, he felt overwhelmed and small, and completely out of his depth, but he also felt determined. He had not come this far to fail. Now, Your Grace, Jake said. His voice was quiet but steady. I need you to understand something. I am still just a 22-year-old human from Earth. I do not know anything about ruling an empire. I will make mistakes. I will need help. I will have to learn and grow every single day. I know, Kara said. Her smile was warm. That is exactly why I chose you. You are willing to admit what you do not know. You are willing to learn. You understand that strength comes from recognizing your limits and working to overcome them. Together we will face whatever challenges come. I bring experience and knowledge of our empire. You bring fresh perspectives and innovative thinking. We will make each other better. Then I accept, Jake said, and I promise you this: every single day I will work to prove I was worthy of your choice. I will learn your culture and your people and your empire. I will stand beside you, not as someone beneath you or as a trophy. I will stand beside you as an equal partner, and together we will show the galaxy what humanity and the Vthuran Empire can achieve together. The ceremony that followed was magnificent. Ancient rituals were performed, oaths were spoken, rings were exchanged. The bonding was made official before witnesses from 40 star systems. As Jake and Caller stood together, hands joined, the crowd finally erupted in full support. The cheering was deafening. In that moment, something changed in the galaxy. A human from a young species had been chosen by one of the most powerful princesses in known space. It was a symbol, a message. The old order was changing. Youth and innovation had value. New perspectives mattered. Working together across species and cultures could achieve great things. The celebration lasted 3 days. Ambassadors came to offer congratulations and assess this new political reality. Some were genuine, some were calculating. Jake met them all with honest humility. He did not pretend to be something he was not. He acknowledged his inexperience while showing his willingness to learn. This honesty won over many who had been skeptical. Bruder became an unexpected ally. The massive crane took Jake aside. On the second day of celebration, human, I misjudged you badly. I thought strength was everything. The first month after the tournament was overwhelming. Jake had to learn so many things at once. The Valthurian language, which was complex and musical, the customs and traditions that went back thousands of years, the politics of 40 star systems, each with their own interests and agendas, the protocols of court life where every gesture and word carried meaning. Some days he felt like he was drowning. He would sit in meetings with ambassadors and council members discussing trade agreements and territorial disputes and military alliances. Half the time he did not understand what was really being said. People spoke in careful diplomatic language that hid their true intentions. But Kara was always there. She would explain things later in private. She would help him understand the real issues beneath the polite words. She never made him feel stupid for not knowing. She treated his questions as valuable. Your perspective is fresh, she would say. You see things we have stopped noticing because we are too used to them. That is valuable. Jake also had help from unexpected sources. Lady Serena, the princess's closest advisor, took him under her wing. She taught him about court politics and how to read people. You must watch their eyes, not their mouths, she explained. Eyes tell truth, mouths tell what people want you to believe. Lord Xerox remained hostile. At first, the High Chamberlain had opposed Jake from the beginning, but even he had to admit Jake was trying hard to learn and adapt. One day after a particularly difficult council meeting, Exer approached Jake. You did well today. You asked the right questions. You listened more than you spoke. That shows wisdom coming from Xerox. This was high praise. Jake learned that earning respect here meant proving yourself through actions over time. The warriors who had competed in the tournament became regular visitors. Bruder especially enjoyed teaching Jake about galactic military history. The massive Crane had a surprisingly sharp mind. Beneath all that muscle, politics is like combat, he would say. You must know when to strike, when to defend, when to wait for the right moment. Xalith taught Jake about diplomacy. She showed him how to navigate complex social situations with grace. Every conversation is a dance, she explained. You must know when to lead, when to follow, when to step aside. Kaldor helped Jake understand the Empire's technology and infrastructure. The Thexian was patient in explaining complex systems. Knowledge is power, he would say. The more you understand how things work, the better you can help improve them. 3 months after the tournament, Jake faced his first real crisis. A dispute erupted between two colony worlds in the outer systems. Both claimed rights to valuable asteroid field. Both had legitimate historical claims. Both were preparing for military action. The council was divided on how to handle it. Some wanted to support one side, some wanted to support the other. Some wanted the Empire to stay neutral and let them fight it out. Jake sat in the emergency council meeting feeling lost. These were complex issues with long histories he did not fully understand, but as he listened to the arguments, he noticed something. Everyone was treating this as a competition, a zero-sum game where one side had to win and the other had to lose. During a break in the meeting, Jake asked Kara a question. What if there is a third option? What if both colonies could benefit? Kara looked at him with interest. Explain. Jake had been reading about the asteroid field. It was huge, far too large for one colony to efficiently mine alone. What if we proposed a joint operation? Both colonies work together to mine the asteroids. They split the resources equally. The Empire provides the initial infrastructure support. Everyone wins. The council members were skeptical when Kiara presented the idea. These colonies have been rivals for generations. They will never agree to work together. Let me talk to them, Jake said. Everyone stared at him, a human who had been in Their empire for only 3 months wanted to negotiate between two hostile colonies. It was absurd. Killer nodded. Do it. Jake traveled to both colonies. He met with their leaders. He listened to their grievances and their histories. He acknowledged their legitimate claims and their pride, but then he showed them something they had not considered. I know you see each other as enemies, he said to each group. But look at what you are fighting over, a resource field so vast that neither of you can use it efficiently alone. If you fight, you will both suffer losses. Your people will die, your economies will be damaged, and even the winner will struggle to develop the asteroids without help. But if you work together, you can accomplish something neither of you can do alone. You can build a joint operation that benefits both your peoples. You can turn a source of conflict into a source of prosperity. The negotiations took weeks. There were setbacks and arguments and moments when it seemed impossible, but Jake kept bringing them back to the central truth. They were stronger together than apart. Working together, they could achieve what fighting could never accomplish. Finally, both colonies agreed they would create a joint mining operation. Resources would be split fairly. The empire would provide initial support and oversight. It was not perfect. There were still tensions and old grudges, but it was a solution, a peaceful solution that turned enemies into partners. When Jake returned to the capital, he was exhausted, but Princess Kara greeted him with pride. You did what experienced diplomats said was impossible. You found a way to turn conflict into cooperation. That is exactly the kind of thinking we need. The council meeting that followed was fascinating. Some council members praised Jake's success. Others were suspicious of the young human's growing influence. Lord Xerox surprisingly defended him. The human used logic and appealed to mutual interest. He did not favor one side unfairly. He found a solution that strengthens the empire as a whole. That is good governance. Jake was learning that leadership was about more than making decisions. It was about bringing people together, finding common ground, creating solutions that worked for everyone involved. 6 months after the tournament, Jake and Kara had settled into a strong partnership rhythm. They worked together on empire business during the day. In the evenings, they would retreat to the Earth Garden to talk and relax. Jake had expanded the garden with more earth, plants, vegetables, and flowers, and even a small tree. It reminded him of home and gave him peace. Kara often joined him there. She found the earth plants fascinating and would ask questions about earth culture and history. Jake would share stories about growing up on his home planet. One evening, as they sat together watching the 3 moons rise, Jake asked something that had been on his mind. Do you ever regret choosing me? I know I have caused complications. Some people still think you made a mistake. Never, Kalara said firmly. You have exceeded every hope I had. Yes, there are those who resist change. There always will be, but look at what you have accomplished. You resolved a conflict that others said was impossible. You have brought fresh ideas to old problems. You have shown that human thinking has real value, and most important, you have been exactly the partner I needed. Someone who treats me as an equal, someone who is not afraid to challenge me when I am wrong, someone who works with me, not for me. That means everything. Jake smiled. I am still learning, still making mistakes, That is true for all of us, Clara said. The difference is you admit your mistakes and learn from them. Many leaders refuse to admit when they are wrong. That pride causes terrible problems. Your humility is a strength, not a weakness. As the first year approached, Jake received a message from Earth. His family wanted to visit. They wanted to see this new world he was part of. They wanted to meet Princess Kara. Jake was nervous about this. His family was simple people. His father was a mechanic. His mother taught school. His younger sister was studying engineering. They had never been off Earth before. How would they handle all this alien culture and royal protocol? But Kara was excited. I want to meet them. I want to understand where you came from. That will help me understand you better. When the Bennett family arrived, it was both wonderful and awkward. His mother cried when she saw him. His father gripped his hand hard and looked proud. His sister Lisa punched his arm and said, "You actually did it, you crazy person." Formal reception was uncomfortable. The Bennett family did not know the protocols. They made small mistakes, but Caller handled it with grace. She spoke to them warmly and honestly. She asked about Earth and their lives. She made them feel welcome. Later in private, his father spoke to Jake. That woman really loves you, son. I can see it. You made a good choice. Jake felt relief wash over him. He had worried that his family would not understand, that they would think he had changed too much or gone too far from his roots, but they saw what mattered. They saw that despite all the alien culture and royal titles, he was still Jake, still their son and brother, just in a very different context. His sister Lisa was fascinated by everything. She asked a million questions about the technology and the different species and how everything worked. She spent hours talking to Kaldor about engineering and science. Before they left, Lisa pulled Jake aside. "This is amazing what you are doing here. You are building bridges between species, between cultures. That is important work. Make sure you remember who you are while you do it. Do not lose yourself in all this." 1 year after the tournament, Jake stood on a balcony overlooking the capital city of Vithoras Prime. The three suns were setting in sequence, painting the sky in colors Earth never showed. He thought about how much had changed in 12 months. A year ago he had been nobody, just another young human trying to prove himself. Now he was the mate of Princess Kara, a voice in the ruling council of a galactic empire, a symbol of what humanity could achieve among the stars. It still felt unreal sometimes, but it also felt right. He heard footsteps behind him. Clara joined him at the railing. She leaned against him comfortably. They had grown close over the year, not just as political partners, but as real companions who understood and supported each other. Thinking about the past year, she asked. Every day, Jake admitted, sometimes I still cannot believe this is my life. Do you regret it? Never, but I wonder sometimes what the Jake from a year ago would think if he could see me now. He would be terrified, Clara said with a smile, but he would also be proud. You have accomplished so much, not just in politics but in changing minds. People see humans differently now because of you. Jake shook his head. Not because of me, because of what we represent. Together, the idea that different species and cultures can work together as equals, that youth and experience can complement each other, that new ways and old ways both have value. You always Give credit to others, Kara observed. That is one of your best qualities, but you should acknowledge your own growth. You are not the nervous young warrior who entered my arena a year ago. You have become a real leader. I had good teachers, Jake said. You Lady Serena. The council members who gave me a chance, even Lord Exer helped more than he knows. Speaking of Xerox, Kara said. He came to me yesterday with a proposal. He wants you to lead a diplomatic mission to the outer colonies. Several worlds there are considering leaving the empire. They feel ignored by the central government. Xerox thinks you can convince them to stay. Jake was surprised. Xerox wants me to lead it. The man who opposed me from day one, he has changed his mind about you, Kara said. He sees that you genuinely care about solving problems, not advancing your own position. That is rare in politics. He thinks the outer colonies will respond to your honest approach. What do you think? Jake asked. Should I do it? I think you should, Kara replied. But not alone. I will come with you. We work best together. The mission to the outer colonies took 2 months. Jake and Kara visited 7 different worlds. Each had legitimate grievances. They felt the central government did not understand their needs. They felt their voices were not heard in council decisions. They felt like second-class members of the empire. Jake listened to them, really listened. He did not dismiss their concerns or offer empty promises. Instead, he acknowledged their problems and worked with them to find real solutions. On one mining colony, the people complained that empire regulations made it impossible to compete with independent operations. Jake studied their situation. He proposed changes to the regulations that would give colonies more flexibility while maintaining safety standards. The council back home approved his recommendations. On an agricultural world, the farmers were frustrated by trade policies that favored more developed planets. Jake negotiated new agreements that gave them better market access. He convinced central government officials that helping outer colonies succeed strengthened the whole empire. On a frontier research station, scientists felt isolated and forgotten. Jake arranged for better communication systems and regular visits from central government representatives. He made sure they knew their work mattered. By the end of the tour, all 7 colonies had recommitted to the empire. More than that, they felt heard and valued. Word spread through the outer systems. The human and the princess actually cared. They actually listened. They actually helped. When Jake and Kara returned to the capital, they were greeted as heroes. The council meeting that followed was remarkable. Even the members who had been most skeptical of Jake now praised his work. Lord Xerox stood to address the council. I opposed Jake Bennett when he first joined us. I thought a young human had no place in our government. I was wrong. He has shown us that fresh perspectives have immense value. He approaches problems without the baggage of our old assumptions. He listens before he speaks. He seeks to understand before he judges. These are qualities we should all strive for. The council members nodded in agreement. Jake felt overwhelmed by the praise, but he also felt the weight of responsibility. People were looking to him as a leader. Now that meant his actions carried consequences beyond himself. That night, in the Earth Garden, Jake talked with Kara about this. I feel the pressure. Now, he admitted, people expect things from me. What if I fail? What if I make a mistake that hurts people? You will make mistakes, Kalara said calmly. We all do. The question is not whether you will fail sometimes. The question is what you do when you fail. Do you hide it and make excuses, or do you acknowledge it and learn and do better next time? Jake nodded. On Earth we have a saying, it is not about how many times you fall down, it is about how many times you get back up. Exactly, Cora said, and you have proven repeatedly that you get back up, that you learn from experience, that you keep trying to improve. That is what makes you a good leader. Over the next few months, Jake took on more responsibilities. He chaired council committees, he led diplomatic negotiations, he worked with Lady Serena to implement new policies that helped outer colonies. He became a real voice in Empire governance, but he never forgot where he came from. He maintained his connections to Earth. He video called his family regularly. He kept his sister Lisa updated on everything. She was finishing her engineering degree and wanted to come work in the Empire. Jake helped arrange that. Having family nearby would help keep him grounded. He also maintained his friendships with the warriors from the tournament. Bruder visited often. The massive crane had become like an older brother. He would share wisdom about leadership in combat and life. Zalith taught Jake advanced diplomacy skills. She showed him how to read subtle social cues and navigate complex political situations. Kaldor became a collaborator on technology projects. Together, they worked on innovations that improved life across the Empire. Thorn remained a good friend who kept Jake humble with blunt honesty. 18 months after the tournament, a major crisis hit. A neighboring empire called the Zarath Dominion began making aggressive moves near Valtharan space. They were testing boundaries, probing for weakness. The Valtharan military wanted to respond with force, show strength, make the Zorath back down. The council was divided. Some agreed with the military, others wanted to try diplomacy first. The debates became heated. Jake listened to both sides. He understood the arguments, but he saw something else, a pattern he recognized from human history. This is how wars start, he said quietly in one council meeting. Everyone looked at him. Two sides, both convinced they are right, both afraid to show weakness, both escalating until someone crosses a line they cannot come back from. Earth had dozens of wars that started exactly this way. What is your point? Lord Xerox asked, not hostile, just curious. My point is we have a choice, Jake replied. We can follow the pattern and probably end up in a war, or we can break the pattern. We can try something different. The military commander, a grizzled veteran named General Korak, spoke up. You want us to show weakness to the Zorath? That is not what I said, Jake replied. I want us to show strength, but real strength, the kind that comes from confidence, not fear. Let me go talk to them. Let me open direct communication. Explore what they actually want. Maybe we can find a solution that avoids bloodshed. You are just a human, General Korax growled. What makes you think the Zorath will even talk to you? Because I have nothing to prove, Jake said. I am not trying to show I am tough or strong. I just want to solve a problem. Sometimes that honesty works better than posturing. Princess Kara supported the idea. Let Jake try. If it fails, we can still respond with military force, but if it succeeds, we avoid a costly war. The council agreed reluctantly. Jake traveled to the border with a small diplomatic team. He sent a message to the Zareth requesting a meeting, too. Everyone surprised they agreed. The Zareth leader was named Commandant Vex. He was a towering figure with scaled skin and cold eyes. He met Jake in a neutral space station. You are the human everyone speaks of, Vex said. Warrior who won a princess with cleverness instead of strength. Jake met his gaze steadily. I won by working with others, by finding solutions everyone could accept. That is what I want to do. Here Vex laughed. You think you can talk me out of taking Thuran territory? My empire is stronger. We will take what we want, maybe, Jake said, or maybe we can both get what we want without fighting. Vex looked interested despite himself explain. Jake had done his research. The Zareth needed resources. Their empire was growing fast. They needed minerals and energy sources. The border regions they were threatening had some of those resources, but not much. What they really wanted was trade. Access. The Valkyther Empire controls the main trade routes in this region. Jake said, you want access to those routes. Fighting us might get you a few resource-poor border worlds.